Okay.
Good job.
Thank you. Thanks, Candice.
Yeah.
Okay, what you're going to see is the highlights of my travels through the 5 stands. And what are the 5 stands? Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan. And I took this tour in October of 2015. The tour will take us through to the Silk Road. And I think I can enlarge the screen, can't I?
No, it is
Oh,
what it is.
it's enlarged, okay. And it's deciding to go on its own speed.
Go back, yeah. You have it.
Hmm?
Yeah, it's, you don't see it full, but they have it full.
Okay,
So don't worry about you, just make sure they can see it.
okay,
And that's the second slide, so way to go. Okay.
yeah. Okay, so the Silk Road starts in Japan. Yes, you don't see my
No, they can't see the
cursor.
pointer.
Okay, okay, starts in the Silk Road from Korea to Japan, and then goes all the way to the Mediterranean.
There's Japan.
Yeah, I thought my pointer will show there, so I guess my point way over there. I wish my pointer would show.
We need a standalone pointer.
Yeah, I think I have one, but I need probably a USB port for that.
I'll see if Eileen has one.
Okay. Okay, so we'll be basically in the Caspian Sea area, and to the right of that, I'm using my mouse and you're not seeing my mouse. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. As I said, these are the 5 stands that I visited. And then in the map, you'll see Kazakhstan in yellow, Kyrgyzstan in purple, Tajikistan in pink, Uzbekistan in purple, and Turkmenistan in yellow. And the basic tour that we took started in Kazakhstan, in the capital of Almaty. Then we went to Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan. From there, we went to, can you all read everything there?
Yes, we see it.
Okay. Then we went to Tashkent. From Tashkent, we went to Samarkand and Bukhara. And then we crossed the border into Turkmenistan, flew into Ashgabat, and then came back into Uzbekistan, and the trip ended in Tashkent again. Now, this particular trip that I took was an all-inclusive tour. When I'm breathing.
Oh.
So usually, if I stop breathing, then you won't hear the rest of my speech. Anyway, the company took us all over the place, and everything was included, which was a big advantage because then we didn't have to worry about changing money and everything. It included us getting visas. Each of the countries needed a separate visa, and each of the countries had their own currencies. And for me, it was advantageous for me to take this tour because I didn't have to pay a single supplement. The all-inclusive part of the tour included transportation, domestic air, land tour, meals, and entry into all the attractions. Now, it's good that I didn't have to cash any money because ATMs are not usually easily available or functional. These tours into Central Asia get very expensive. And the cheapest one that I took was about $7,000, not counting the international airfare. And then other trips, they charge you extra for visas and food and all of that. So they come to about 15,000 or more. Now, why did I go into these 5 stands? Well, I saw lots of pictures of beautiful blue domes and intricate architectures. All that called me there. And I was inquisitive to see what a post-Soviet ruled country looks like and how they manage their life after the Soviet era. So it was partly a reason for my continuous education also. I like learning customs, cultures, traditions of different countries, and sometimes, if possible, I compare them to my own ancestry, our cultures, dancing, music, and food. Now, between each of these countries, there was a demilitarized zone or no man's zone. So it was rather difficult at the borders because we had to fill up forms all over again before we cleared the customs. And
It's very weedy, but I do have a pointer.
okay, good.
And I don't know if the batteries are still any good, but
Okay.
just
as
put the big
long-
silver button and go where you want.
Okay, thank you.
Just put my mailbox later.
Okay. What number?
C408.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the demilitarized zones were rather difficult to get into to start with because we had to go through all the clearances with visa and fill up immigration forms. But the worst scenario after the customs check was that they would check every single medication you had to make sure that you're not carrying anything illegal and that the medications were legal according to their list. The other thing was one of the longest demilitarized zone was between Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. It was about 2 miles. It was very sandy. And I was lucky that I managed to hitch a ride on a beaten down vehicle that charged me $1. All the other demilitarized zones, we had to drag our own luggage and walk. The restrooms in those areas were rather primitive. And so this trip was a hard trip for me. And more so because I landed with a backache. And so the entire 19 days that this trip was, I was falling behind the whole group as I was using my cane and walking across. So this trip was very hard. But what I realized was that this area, having been under authoritative rule, was very safe, just like China is safe. There were no pickpockets, there were no people chasing after me, seeing me alone. So that was really good. Okay, so now let's talk about Tajikistan. And we were starting our trip in Almaty. So this is the largest landlocked country in the world. It is bordered by Russia in the north and west, China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and partly Turkmenistan also. So This thing advanced. Okay. The majority of the population are Muslim. It's about 19 million people in such a large country. So the population density is low. Economically and politically, they're a dominant nation. About 60% of the region's GDP is primarily through oil and gas, and it has got vast mineral resources. In 1936, it became part of Soviet Union, and it got its independence in 1991, like all the other countries in Central Asia. Historically, the original inhabitants were nomadic groups. Now, the first thing we saw when we went to a park on the first evening was a wedding party. And as you see, they just danced. There was no separation between men and women. They are dancing all together and very informal. So I don't know if this was before the wedding or after the wedding, but here's the couple on the side. I didn't want to stop. Okay, this is a cathedral that I saw in that park, and the park is called the Pamphilov Park. So inside that park, this cathedral that was built in 1907 is special because it's fully wooden cathedral, and it doesn't have any nails. It's built without any nails. It's about 56 meters tall, and it's the second tallest wooden building in the world. Now, as I said, this park was built in honor of the Pamphilov heroes who defended Moscow from Germans during World War II. And those were some of the pictures of the Pamphilov heroes. Now, usually on trips like this, they take you to the grocery stores to show you how well they're doing with their produce and how they keep their produce. This next picture is showing some of the mountains of Almaty, and people go there to enjoy themselves. They have a big ice rink in the mountains that are called the Blue Mountains, about 1,100 meters high. It's a tourist site. The ice rink is on one side over there. And then they have ski opportunities, and you can take pictures with this big eagle. And there's the big tower. The page decided to change itself. Okay, we're done. Now here is Kyrgyzstan. It's the next country we visited. It's again a landlocked country, bordered by, can you see everything there? Bordered by Kazakhstan, China, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. The capital city is Bishkek. Can you find that somewhere? I'm trying to read it too. I can't read it. It's somewhere along here. Can you find it somewhere? I can't see it from here at an angle. Anyway, 90% of the population is Sunni Muslim, and geographically it's isolated by high mountains. It was conquered by the Mongols in 1936. It became part of USSR, but it gained independence in 1991 when Mikhail Gorbachev made domestic reforms in USSR. Seafood is usually not served in these restaurants, because it's a landlocked country. Rather, to my surprise, they served horse meat. And I had a lot of difficulties with food because I don't eat all these strange things. Now we're on our way to Bishkek, and on our way we stopped at the Burano Tower, and it's a giant minaret in the Chui Valley built in the 11th century. And one of these oldest architectural constructions, and it's about 45 meters high, but most of it was destroyed during an earthquake. And now it's about 25 meters. Russians used some of the bricks for some of their building projects. Now there was a yurt there in the area. We got inquisitive to see what's inside that yurt. There was a lady selling a lot of the arts and crafts of the area. There's a beautiful national park in Kyrgyzstan called Ala Arka, and we hiked part of it. It's part of the Tanshan Mountains, located about 35 kilometers south of the capital of Bishkek. It was established in 1976 and currently covers 16,485 acres. At the gate, it's about 1,500 meters high. At the maximum, it is 485 meters. Now for a little music. First night we were treated to dinner and enjoyed this entertainment. This guy played several different kinds of flute instruments. Now these are the artists who performed. Their costumes are rather elaborate with a lot of embroidery, as you see. Okay, now we're in the capital of Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan. And over here on the left side, you see a big museum with a statue of Lenin. And this is one of the most important museums and cultural heritage museum, where you see a lot of the sculptures and objects from antiquity to the end of the 20th century. It's one of the most important museums in Central Asia. And over here are pictures of a park right next to that museum where the local artists built their sculptures. And in the middle, we have arches. There's an eternal fire in honor of the Red Army soldiers. So the next country we go to is Uzbekistan. It is again a landlocked country, but 2/3 of the Sea of Aral over there is shared with Kazakhstan. The population is estimated in 2021 to be about 34,860,000. 3/4 are Uzbeks, the rest are Russian, Tajiks, Kazakhs, Tatars, and Karaka people. The capital is Tashkent, The languages spoken are Uzbek, Russian, Tajik, and Kazakh. The main religion is Sunni Muslim and also Eastern Orthodox. It is fertile, it is very fertile, and it has a high mountain range in the south and in the east. 4/5 of the country is flat, sun-baked lowlands. They export natural gas, petroleum, and various metallic ores, and it's a leading grower of cotton, fruit, and vegetables, and Karakul sheep, main manufacturer of machinery and heavy equipment. Now, Tashkent, as I said, is the capital of Uzbekistan. It was created in 1924 by the Russians. In 1990, it declared sovereignty from the Russians, and in 1991, they were independent. It's economically one of the strongest countries in Central Asia. Now, this monument that you see is of the Indian Prime Minister, Lal Bahadur Shastri, who came to sign the treaties between India and Pakistan in January of 1966. Mysteriously, he passed away. So that's why they have this monument in his honor, and they have named a street Shastri Street. Now we're in Bukhara, another big city, which is part of the Silk Road in the country of Uzbekistan. Now, on the left side, you see some buildings, well, a building with 4 minarets, and it's called a Char Minar, which is the Persian name for 4 towers, Char Minar. And somehow this name also is understood by people in India, Char meaning 4, Minar meaning tower. And you'll pretty soon see the reason why. It's advancing faster than I wanted it to. Okay, so this is basically a gatehouse for a madrasa. A madrasa is where the Muslims train the people for their religion, to understand learn their religion. It was built in 1806 to 1807, and it is protected as a World Heritage Site. And the music you see came from a restaurant or an area where we went for dinner. Now, what was interesting to me is to see their costumes. Doesn't want to start. And for people of India, these costumes are very familiar. I'm wearing something similar today. Now, outside of Bukhara, there's another important building. You see the exterior and the interior. Interior is in the middle picture. It kind of looks sandy on the outside, but this is a remaining monument that was built by Persian people who at one time lived in this area in 930 AD. These are some of the surviving examples of the funerary architecture in the Islamic world, and it's very famous because of that. Now, next to it, in this picture, is a fortress called the Ark of Bukhara. Its perimeter runs about 2,000 and 2,591 feet, and it encloses 9.8 acres. The height varies in certain areas between 52 to 60 feet, 66 feet. They have dated it back to 500 AD, but they're not 100% sure because several times it was destroyed and rebuilt. Right now, there are a lot of museums and mosques in there. As I said, Bukhara was part of the Silk Road, and here you get a lot of opportunities to shop. And they have very beautiful carpets and other kinds of handicrafts, jackets, stoles, ceramic things, and souvenirs. I was tempted to go shopping, but my back gave me trouble. And Bukhara, like I said, is located in the Silk Road, and it is listed as one of the World Heritage Sites. Now, this guy, whose picture you see, was a very powerful, strong ruler of the country. And at one time, the Turco-Mughal Empire comprised of Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Iran, certain areas of the Caucasus, Iraq, Kuwait, Afghanistan, Russia, India, Pakistan, Syria, and Turkey. His name is Emir Timur, and he lived there in the country about 1336 to 1405. And he married Sareh Mulk Khanum. She was a direct relative of Genghis Khan. Now, he was so important, but he was also very powerful, and he was one of the big forces behind the revival of the arts and sciences in the Muslim world. This was during the 14th to the 16th century. Here is the tomb of that emperor, and it's in the city of Samarkand, which was the next city we went to. Timur was also known as Tamerlane at one time. And this is a precursor of future tombs that were built by his descendants. So the tombs that you see in this building are of himself, his son Shahrukh and Miran Shah, and his grandsons Ulbeg and Muhammad Sultan, and Timur's teacher Syed Barak. Now I'm going to digress a little bit. Timur had many descendants, and a lot of them ended up in India. His great grandson was Babur, who first came into India. And the rulers who followed Babur in India, were called Humayun, Akbar, Jahangir, Shah Jahan, who built the Taj Mahal, and Aurangzeb. All these Mughals ruled India until the British came into Surat in August 24, 1608. So the British ruled India until 1947. So about, 200 years or so, 250 or whatever. So here is one of the main sites of Samarkand. And one of the reasons why I ended up there looking at all the pictures of these blue domes and tile work and all that. This is called the Registan. And people usually gather here just to enjoy themselves and also listen to royal proclamations and watch public executions. It's flanked by three different madrasas. Ulbeg Madrasa, if you remember, Ulbeg was one of the grandsons of Timur. And then, oops. And then here is Tilia Kori, right in the middle. This is Ulbeg Madrasa, Tilia Kori, and Sherdor Madrasa. Now, Ulbeg, as I told you, was a grandson of Timur. He was also a scholar. So they had all kinds of things, subjects being taught. And he himself was a scholar and astronomer. And it's one of the oldest buildings in Rajasthan. Now, Sherdor Madrasa is right across from it. And the other one is Tilia Kori. And they were built in the 17th century under another ruler called Yangtosh Bokhador. I'm going to have a hard time with the names, so I'll probably mess them up. Little bit more about Sherdor Madrasa. Sher means lion. Door means there's a door. And if you notice over here, I guess that was images of lions or tigers or something. And another interesting thing is over here, you see a swastika. You can't see it there, I think, on that slide. But there's a swastika over there. And in those days, the swastika represented the symbol of abundance and fertility. Abundance and fertility. Fertility. Yeah. Now, a lot of the madrasas have now been repurposed. And this is what they're repurposed for, as souvenir stalls. So people like me enjoyed shopping here. And some of the local girls wanted to take a picture with me. So this is inside of a mosque called Bibi Khayyam Mosque. And it's one of the more important mosques that has been restored by the Soviets. It was built as a grandiose mosque, but what you're seeing are the remains of the mosque. It's rather magnificent, a lot of gold work. And here we are in Turkmenistan, one of the most gorgeous and richest parts of Central Asia. It is landlocked again, but the Caspian Sea is on one side. As I said, it's the flashiest and expensive country in Central Asia and got the highest density of white marble buildings, which number to about 500. Population here is 6 million, and it was annexed by the Russian Empire in 1881. But it got its independence in 1991, just like all the others. Its current ruler has a very long name, and he's the son of the second ruler. The current one got elected in March of 2022, and his name is Sardar Gurbanguly Berdimu something. Anyway, I wish, you can see his name down there. Anyone want to try to pronounce his name? I gave up. I gave up. So between 1993 and 2017, the government provided the citizens with free electricity, water, natural gas. Turkmenistan is the fifth largest reserves of natural gas. Now let's look at some of the monuments. This is a monument that is the Independence Monument. It's about 387 feet. It commemorates the independence from Soviet Union. It has an exhibition hall at the base. And on top of that, it has a whole bunch of other interesting things. Now they have beautiful landscaping around it and a lot of monuments or statues of Turkmen leaders. You find two there, and the next picture shows two more. But there were about 20 such statues, and too many to show here for the time I have. Now, this is a big mosque that was built kind of little on the outskirts, and it's called Turkmen Bashi Ruhi. It was built by the first ruler since independence, Sapar Murat Niyazov, who in 1999 became the president for life in Turkmenistan. In 2004, along with the mausoleum on this particular land, I'll show it to you later. It was one of the biggest mosques that can hold congregations of 10,000 people, but surprisingly, it remains empty. And one of the reasons for that is that the devout mosque goers consider the inscriptions in the mosque from the Quran and from the Runama, the book of the soul, built into the walls are blasphemous. So nobody wants to go in there. But we went in there and saw the beautiful artwork and inscriptions that were in there. Now, Niyazov died 2 years later in December of 2006 and was buried in the mausoleum that he made in his birthplace of Gaipak, right next to that particular mosque. Again, a lot of marble and gold were used to build the mosque, build his mausoleum, sorry. Now, being that he became the president for life, he called himself Turkmen Bashi, which means head of the Turkmen. Now, he developed a lot of interesting things while he was a ruler. One was that he changed the Turkmen alphabet, and he renamed all the months and days of the week after famous cultural figures of Turkmenistan, including himself. He abolished death penalty, but he somehow outlawed operas and lip syncing. He banished dogs out of the capital of Ashgabat. So he was often criticized for violating human rights. Now, the next monument we saw was the Arch of Neutrality. It's about 75 meters high, shaped like a rocket. And on top of that, up above there, is a statue of the dictator, Niyazov. And it's such that it rotates throughout the day so that his face is always facing the sun. It was built in 1998, and it was built in honor of neutrality, which was his official policy. It cost about $12 million. Despite having so much of gas and only 5 million people living there, a lot of them were destitute while this guy continued his building his lavish monuments. Now, this was another interesting thing that we saw, and this is called House of Happiness or the Wedding Palace. This is their name for it. It was inaugurated by the second president, who was also another lavish, gold-loving guy. And that's the one with the long name, whose son is now the ruler. So this was built on the 20th anniversary of the Turkmenistan's independence in 2011. It's a wedding palace, it's a civil building. It registers 7 pairs of newlyweds at a time. It is 11 storied, and 11 stories are at the base. It has 3 halls for celebrations, 7 banquet halls for weddings, dozens of shops of various services, but pertaining to weddings, from wedding dresses to wedding decorations of cards, rental, jewelry, national embroideries, photo, beauty salons, and etc., and a lot of parking spaces. Now, this shape might feel familiar to you because you see pictures of the hotel in Dubai. This is the, whatever this name, how you pronounce it, I don't know, Yidil's something. That was a hotel we happened to live in while we were in Afghanistan, while we were in Ashgabat. It was built in 2013 in the foothills of the Kopatag Mountains. And it had a commanding view of the cities. It has 155 rooms, 24 stories, about 107 meters high. And can you believe it? It's built with glass, 14,000 square meters of glass. That name of the hotel, you or whatever, means star and is visible practically from any part of Ashgabat. The whole structure has a high degree of seismic resistance. Now look at the lobby. A lot of gold, a lot of marble. It's really dazzling. And here's my room. I've never lived in such lavish hotel rooms before. It's really beautiful. And over here, I could see the whole city. This was the big window. Now, this is a monument dedicated to the Ashkal Teke horses. These horses are called, they are believed to be a national treasure. And they were the oldest domesticated horse breeds, reputed for the speed and endurance, intelligence, and they have a distinctive metallic sheen. So it's fine bone, lightweight horses. And that's what you find on top of the monument. They're all in gold. It was the passion of the president with a long name. It marked 10 years of independence from the Soviet Union. And you see the horse featured in their national emblem right in the middle there. Now, over in Ashgabat, we were treated to a lunch, and instead of sitting in the regular part of the restaurant, they fed our good lunch in yurts. And this is what they look like. I had to put 2 pictures together. So they didn't quite match, but it was circular. And we sat on cushions around the big table. The table was low because we were sitting on cushions. And for me as an Indian, what they served was nothing different from what we eat in India. So here's where the similarities come. So we had samosas, kebabs, naans, dals, And these food was garnished with pomegranates, cilantro, red onions, just like our Indian food. More monuments. This one, the first one here in the white, this one is the monument dedicated to the Constitution. It's about 185 meters high. It's the second tallest building in Turkmenistan, built in honor of the 20th anniversary, constructed in 2008 to 2011. And inside it, in the base, is a museum, conference room, library, gift shop, and cafeteria. The next monument you see that looks like an arch was built in memory of the huge earthquake 77.3 in the Richter scale that devastated the city of Ashgabat in October 5 and 6 of 1948. About 110 to 170,000 people died in the capital and the surrounding areas. Well, I think my slideshow wants to run at its own speed. This is Ashgabat. We went for a night tour, and I took these pictures from a moving bus. So I had to eliminate a lot of them, but these are some of the best pictures I had. Over here, there's more. I had plenty more, but like I said, they wouldn't all come in focus because the bus was moving. Now, this is one of the important cities called Khiva. And this one here was built in honor of Abdullah Muhammad ibn Musu al-Khwarizmi. He was known as the father of algebra and also astronomy, geography, and he was a son of the city of Khiva. Well, in Khiva, what we saw was another big fortress, which again surrounded another fortress called Ichinkala. Inside it, you had harem, mints, stables, arsenal, and mosque, and a prison. Orang Khan began the construction of the citadel complex in 1686, which consists of a house of Khan and members of his family. In 1990, it was designated as a World Heritage Site. And to this day, the old town, Ichinkala, remains inside this fortress. Ichinkala was the inner city, or Khiva's old town. It was surrounded by the old wall, which is about 2.5 kilometers. It had 4 gates. Now here again, I find a word that is known to us Indians, which is darwaza. Darwaza means a door or a gate. This is a picture of the western gate. And when we went inside it, we saw lots of things that we could shop for, interesting things, beautiful hats and carpets and stuff like that. So the eastern gate, on the other hand, this is the western gate. The eastern gate was where the slaves used to enter. And in those days, the slaves were white Russian youth that they would trade for up to 4 camels. So I guess that's how they purchased slaves. Now they used to have cells in which they used to keep all the slaves. Now Khiva is also called a caravanserai, which are places where the caravans stop overnight before they go into the desert. So most of Uzbekistan, as I said, was desert. And here, this city in the fortress was a place where the nomads stopped. Very interestingly, the Kaltar Minar, which means another tower, Minar Tower, was built. It was supposed to be 95, well, it was supposed to be a lot bigger, but now it stands at 95 feet high and is 48 feet around. This is because its construction was abruptly interrupted in 1855, leaving this minaret unfinished, and it's 1/3 complete. Now we're in the last country that we hadn't visited thus far, and this is the Arbab Cultural Palace in Kujan in Tajikistan. Now, it is the former headquarters of the Soviet collective farm, modeled on the winter gardens of Peterhof Palace in St. Petersburg. In 1992, it was a site of the meeting of the Tajik Soviet Union when they declared independence from Soviets. This is also the site where the Tajik flag was chosen, and here is a sample of the flag on the bottom. The site was also used for a peace conference that followed the Tajik Civil War, and the president, another guy with a long name, Imoli Malai Ramon, first came into prominence speaking at the palace. And Tajiks celebrated their successful negotiations, ending the Tajik Civil War. Now, Tajikistan was ruled by the Soviets for a long time, and at one time Kujan was known as Leninabad. This was in about 1885. Again, like the other countries, in 1991 we got independence, but the shadow of Lenin loomed over the central part of the city. And in 2011, in the middle of the night, they quietly moved it to an outside park called the Victoria Park. And Leninabad reverted back to its old name of Kujand. This particular statue is 74 feet tall. And now we get back to Tashkent. We did tour Tashkent a little bit, but it rained and none of us wanted to get down in the rain. So we just enjoyed our dinner, farewell dinner, with a little entertainment. Okay, so that's all I have. And I think I've gone over a little bit, but let's hope we don't have a trouble. We have to vacate this place about 2:15. And I did have a little bit of extra, a second meeting scheduled on.
Fix your mic, fix your mic.
Oh, yeah, okay, I forgot. Yeah, we have to vacate about 2:15, but if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. I'm not an expert on Central Asia because I went there only as a traveler. So if you have any questions, you want to put the light on? Lynn, yeah. Thank you. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Some of the pictures showed, I wish there had been more of them. It was very interesting that the facial features were different.
Mhm,
And in some of the areas, very much like India.
mhm,
People look like they're from India.
right.
And then others look like they came from China.
Yeah,
And then as they got together.
remember the ruler Timur? He married Genghis Khan's
Yeah,
relative. So that's why the Chinese features probably. And I think people in that region do have a little Chinese feature.
can you talk into the microphone?
Yes, yes.
What was the question?
The question was that some people looked Chinese type and some people look Indian. So there was probably mixture of the two cultures due to marriage. Yeah.
What was the name of the tour company?
Oh boy, that was East Side something. I think I had it on one of the slides. I can tell you. But this was one of the roughest tours I took, mainly because we had to walk across the demilitarized zones. And then my backache didn't help any.
I was also surprised that they weren't all, most of them, very, what's the word I'm looking for? That what with the abundance of natural gas and oil and whatever, that they were not wealthy countries. And they,
Countries were probably rich in all of these things, but the money didn't trickle down to the general population.
yeah, has that changed at all, or are they still that?
Well, I saw these countries in 2015. And
When
I
did you
don't,
go there
2015,
20,
2015,
15? Oh, so that's recent, very.
pretty recent.
Did you find it difficulty in traveling alone as a woman?
You know, it is difficult traveling as a woman. You do end up having to pay single supplements. But fortunately, they had a sale going on when I looked at this tour company. And they said singles don't have to pay a supplement. So I was lucky. But all the other companies that I looked at had a hefty single supplement. Yeah, it is difficult traveling as a woman. You don't want to be found alone in a lot of places. But due to my backache, I was getting separated from the rest of the group. But at no time did anybody try to approach me or pickpocket me or do anything.
What was the mode of transportation within
It was just a minibus,
a bus,
small bus.
a small bus, minibus, okay?
Mhm. Yeah,
How many people were on the trip?
about 8 or 10.
Oh, that's a wonderful trip.
Yeah,
Nice and small
yeah.
and personal.
No, it would have been more enjoyable had I not had that stupid backache. So we flew straight into Almaty through Turkey. Turkey was one stop, and then we flew to Almaty. Yeah.
So at that time, how much was a dollar worth here? When you had to pay $1?
I don't recall. But I know it cost me about 7,000 plus international air. And I traveled business class. So it was expensive. Yeah, Ruth.
Did your itinerary include visiting local people in any of these countries?
Not really. We didn't go to any homes. Like some of the other tours I've taken, we have actually had lunch or dinner or something with the local people, but not in these countries. But we did have an opportunity to walk around and see the places. We were not challenged at any time. So we're pretty free walking around. Yeah.
Did you see many foreigners on the streets? Or was
Not
it
too many,
very
not too
insulated?
many. I guess the expense keeps them away. But they had nice resorts and everything, I'm sure.
I can't understand.
I said they had lots of resorts and everything. So maybe foreigners were there. I just didn't see any.
What time of the year were you there?
Around October.
Oh, that's a great time.
Mhm. Yeah,
What's the climate like?
climate was good. Wasn't too hot, wasn't too cold. Okay. So I guess we have to clear out. And until the next meeting, anyone have anything else to ask me about? Yes, Jean? I can't tell that because, like I said, we were traveling a lot and I didn't pay attention. I didn't pay
What's your
attention.
level of education in those countries? Is it highly educated or the university?
Yeah, there are universities and things like that, but again,
Honor?
I'm not an expert on the country. Thank you.